Welcome everyone to this live stream. Let's give those subscribers and such a minute or two to join. To those watching this pre-recorded, later archived, on demand, welcome already. You can probably skip a minute or two for the period of time of people joining. We should be live, and today we are first time streaming from Linux 5, and also I rebuilt OBS with the latest Git snapshot, because why not? It sometimes crashed here last night with displaying some system tray icons, so or message bubble whatsoever. Still having questions. Are we even, or are we? Should be streaming. Why is this not? Actually, this. Why is this not showing stream health that we are streaming? Strange. Anyway, we can commit this. I hope it's at least streaming. If not, then not. You never know with this modern. It looks streaming, just not. Still have questions. Why does this not say live anyway? The wonders of modern web UI. Welcome everyone, in case someone's watching. So latest OBS Studio T2 probably soon will be the greatest desktop distribution. As much as we are updating here left and right, even latest greatest OBS for hardware encode. Now it's saying live. It's still whining about the 1088 resolution stuff here, because today we are streaming from AMD Ryzen with AMD Polaris or whatever. Also I wonder, so I will code here, so we will do some live coding of Lua in a second. Just wondering, should we probably, or maybe I sort this mess in a minute. So then let's make ourselves comfortable. Probably let's make this resolution higher to 192. I hope OBS, actually OBS, it's of course slightly funny that OBS really with Qt online resizes there. So now I can't read all the text. So Qt is dynamically rescaling, GTK not, so whatever. Let's see, this should give us, this gives us a super huge, this is too huge though. Then let's DPI 144 I think is, let's check 96 multiplied by 1.5, yeah, 144, because this is too large for me. So what I wanted to shortly code today, and this is a little bit our new secret sauce, because why not, is actually here our UI stuff. And you have seen me using this activity stuff here, and this is one of my demo applications for this. So apps activity. Let's see how huge Xemacs becomes. Yeah, for your fun, and my huge text font here, so whatever. I wonder if Qt stuff dynamically rescales, so doesn't. So why is Qt rescaling here up but not down? I have no idea. This is a little strange to me, but the wonders of huge gigabyte sized source packages, as you might see there. So you have not seen, maybe not precisely the resizing, but you see now it's large. You can believe me that this increased here when I xrender changed the DPI resolution there, and now it remains huge. So somehow it upscale but doesn't downscale for whatever magic reason, but whatever. So to the quick point of this video, and I try to make this a short session. This is our amazing activity, or actually demo app, but amazing UI stuff that I mentioned previously we use in our new portable applications, and we have written a whole UI system from scratch, and one of the demo applications here is my activity stuff. I actually have a bunch of demo applications, all the stuff we develop for testing, fun stuff I showed already. Do I still have it? I have it in history. Even here, this iPhone app here, 732, this numeric puzzle here. As I showed, we have this in the App Store, or actually should have anyway. And so just some fun stuff, and also even actually I have a whole text editor, because why not? And probably I will soon continue this text editor, which right now is only a performance test and such. Activity, some edit right now, super simple text thing in a couple of 100 lines, and yeah, cut and paste and high DPI and everything. Same source, works on Mac, Windows and Linux. And right now, of course, the text editor is super simple. This is just because actually initially this was not as fast. Of course, now I show you the secret source, but we will edit this in a second anyway. Because in the beginning this was not so fast, I had to actually optimize quite a bit to have this more than a little text scrolling that fast. This is not yet fully GPU accelerated. Probably we will continue to make this amazingly GPU accelerated another day. But today I noticed here so this activity stuff is relatively simple, and here you see our secret source. So for those recurring subscribers and such, you get here some inside story and inside knowledge, and maybe we more and more, I get the feeling the more I see Qt and GTK and stuff, I have the feeling we should actually commercialize this. So based on Lua, Lua is a dynamically typed language. So all of this code you see here is Lua actually, and really nice language, small and beautiful. As you know, we like it, just the way we love it. Developed by Roberto Izem, probably should have opened this before the stream, in Brazil, University of, I don't know, Rio de Janeiro or something. Lua, Roberto, where is the author? Yeah, Roberto, why does it not have the full name there? Yeah, Roberto Iazuliminci, something like this, and Luis Henrique de Figueiro, Valdemar Celis, probably I should have practiced pronouncing the names here before the live stream. And if you look this up, Wikipedia, so Lua is dynamically typed. That means it's not, in contrast to C, C++ and such, which are statically typed, where you need to declare all the types like int and double and stuff. In Lua you don't have this, or arrays and structures. Lua has very simple type system and very few, so you basically only have number boolean table and nil, and that's it. And basically you put everything in tables, so you don't have really structures. You don't type here structures out and with all the types, but in Lua you do duck typing, meaning if it looks and walks like a duck, then it could be a duck, and you can maybe use it like a duck if it's a duck. If it looks like one, it is one. And I also like to think of duck typing of duct tape, where you just glue everything together with duct tape. Also funny view, in my opinion, my interpretation. Not sure if this is some official thing. Also nice to think with duct typing of duct tape, just gluing everything together. In my opinion, initially, actually 10 years ago, I didn't like this, and I was sniffing with my nose a little bit over with my C++ statically typed heritage, but in the meantime I started to really love it for some things. Of course, it's not, if you use bare Lua like this, it's not the most amazingly fast. It's interpreted, but that is enough for UI systems. All the heavy graphic processing is done in C++ here, and probably soon offloaded to GPUs. But the benefit is that you can really nicely put your UI stuff together. For example, here you see we have a window. So this is, by the way, some temporary window, T window, because we do here some native shadows, because this is not using window decoration. So this is why I stick this here in some temporary window and stick a shadow window around this just for the graphic fun of it. Normally you would just have here window equals window new. So this is a newer Lua table, calling a table. This is some table object saying very dynamic type system. You can read this. I did not want to teach Lua. Probably I will, most likely. By the way, there should not be a space. Always fun when you see your white space damage in YouTube live streams. And as you see, in my opinion, this is really super nice. And this is, again, this is all proprietary from our stuff. A little bit modeled. We learned the best we could learn from other UI systems and mixed all the stuff we like together. So this is here some, instead of calling here set frame and whatsoever, this is some table. So with this, like a little bit like JavaScript, just with all the ballast. Super simple Lua source is just some 100K and compiles to just some 100K. Super amazing. There's also just in-home compiler, which we, by the way, are not using, but we have started our own for several reasons. But we're not using this in production yet. But anyway, so if with Lua JIT, Lua just in-home compiler, you, by the way, get amazing performance. With Lua JIT, you can even challenge and sometimes even surpass C++ performance if you program carefully. But again, not using this yet. Time will show. Anyway, so this is some declarative UI stuff. So we create here, this is a table, Lua table, and this is next table here, so frame table with X, Y, width and height. So width and height we just initialize to something. We will later resize this again as more, because we stack here more and more graph things into this, and this is why size doesn't really matter. And just, we probably could, but the reason we cannot use 0 is I think some Windows 32 or X, maybe X doesn't allow it. If you create a window with size 0, maybe X throws an error like invalid parameter or something. So it's better not to use their very special names, very special numbers. And yeah, so decoration false. So normally you would not need all this stuff. This stuff we only need because we want all these lines. Obviously these are comments, by the way. And initially I didn't like this -- for comments. I found this really alien a decade ago, but whatever, doesn't really matter so much. And yeah, that doesn't really matter if it's this or this. Something is a comment, so that's a comment. And so we just say here for a non-standard window, decoration false and has alpha true, to make sure our C++ glue makes sure to allocate a window with alpha channel, for example X, and maybe also Win32 needs this. And so some of these special things you need to know. And by the way, obviously if we would commercialize this amazing system, in my opinion, then we would of course write amazing documentation for this. Just wanted to give you a brief overview here. And radius defines here the shadow value of our own radius here. Nothing very special. And this is a nice thing about duck typing. You just throw all the stuff you need in there. So this is a normal window class, window object, and if you need some extra stuff like a radius or other special stuff, you just throw it in here. Totally in love with this. 10 years ago I would have sniffed my nose over this, but in the meantime this saves so much time. Of course you can make typos. With C++ you would get this object, this struct doesn't have a member named radius or stuff, but here you can just throw everything in. Of course this is not preventing typos, but whatever I found, the compile time, by the way, if we run this here, by the way, welcome Devin, some programming session, I hope you enjoy it. And when we run this like this, of course I could disclose a little bit of our proprietary UI system, but so be it. And maybe people contact me and want to license it, because in my opinion it's amazing. And I should also use actually the right file for this, obviously, activity. So when we run it like this source code here is even compiled here to bytecode internally by Lua, and you see this is instant, so much to compiling Qt for half an hour. This is compiled in milliseconds, and of course this example is not the very largest, but even our exact scan stuff, even if I start it like this, of course our customers don't start it like this, then it's pre-compiled. But if I start our exact scan, and by the way, maybe I shouldn't pass their sensors, you see even this exact scan stuff compiled from Lua source starts here from in milliseconds, so much to keep it stupid simple. can't repeat how often I'm in love with this language, and sometimes it's not love on the first look, or what is the direct English translation? Love, not in love at the first glance. As I said initially, when I first saw Lua 10 years ago, I didn't like it at all, and then I, with each passing year, felt more in love with it. Completely amazing. So now to the point of this video, and by the way, I did not wanted to show you all of it. This code is super boring. It's just some functions. So in Lua function, you write a function, a little bit like shell script, in my opinion, probably looking a little bit like this, and just some helper functions here. And then I have here some round, this RRD like, I just named it here, this round robin database, just some name inspiration, just some object with some values, some round cycled value storage here, if you want to learn some programming style. And then of course this graph view has here some draw function that is internally, we by the way use ACK anti-grain geometry of a very popular graphic library. This is one of the few things that we source in here, BSD licensed, also used by Haiku and other stuff. Haiku is BOS successor, but we probably maybe we replace also ACK sometime, because this is C++, not the greatest fan, it's slightly anyway, works for what it should do. So all this stuff is drawn with ACK in anti-grain geometry, anti-aliased. But again, I'm not 100% happy with it. We most likely write our own another year or something. Time will show. Doesn't really matter so much. So we have this graph stuff, have some update function where this collects the new values, and we have a couple of these graphs, the mem graph, CPU graph. So you see the graphs here, CPU graphs, CPU frequency, temperature. Is it temperature? Wait a second, this is, no, this is only frequency. And then here, of course, block stuff and Ethernet stuff, and disk graph here, and probably, maybe I should rename disk graph to block graph, but doesn't really matter. Net graph, and how this works on Unix systems if you've never seen this. And as you know, we want to make here amazing educational content, and I hope you enjoy it. In Linux systems, probably also maybe other BSD or something, Plan 9 or whatsoever, in Linux half of the values come out of proc, like, don't even know, maybe meminfo and stuff like this. And the CPU stuff comes from this, so this class processor maybe, or stuff like this. The problem is, even with my Linux heritage, I forget often where this stuff is coming from. Also, the new style probably has block stuff here also, so you get the statistics here in files like stat, I guess. And it's just that you have also seen this and know where this is coming from. So all of those top utilities and stuff like this is collecting this stuff out of proc and this and stuff. And what I wanted to do today, you see we have here already quite some graphs, and by the way, these are just not many lines of codes. When you look into Geek Realm or other open source things, these are only 1000 lines of code. And this even obviously includes white space and comments, so just in 1000 lines of codes. By the way, our stuff is internally called XVES a little bit, because a decade ago I started, for some of these tools, I started to use EVES, this Enlightenment 17, but this is C and old-fashioned and not the greatest fan of this. And they also keep changing their stuff. For example, in our open source exact image, we have an image viewer that is using EVES, this Enlightenment 17 canvas, so you have some eDisplay, still using this every other day. This is open source and exact image, probably packaged in Debian and SUSE or something. Just if you need a lightweight image viewer, just that it needs EVES from Enlightenment 17, but they keep changing their stuff. It's C, so this is why when we started our 20% project of mine a couple of years ago for this portable UI stuff, we inspired from all the best stuff that we could find, and we called it XVES as internal working project name for the successor of EVES. And again, to close the summary here, C++ backend ACK for anti-grain alias, anti-aliased, anti-grain geometry, and with C++ cross-platform glue, X11, Windows 32, Mac OS, UI and Android backends and stuff, and theoretically others. Maybe I even make a BOS Haiku backend another day, maybe. All the fun stuff we can make on YouTube. But so the point for this video, for another video, oops, should probably also not hit the Ryzen box here. Another video, I specifically coded here this views for the CPU with this. So for example, this CPU temperature stuff I've coded for the ThinkPad video because I wanted to see the frequency scaling, and when we put load on this, how the CPU frequencies of the mobile AMD Ryzen fluctuate. You see all the video content creation also makes our stuff here greater again. And I noticed when we were working on this with, because normally this is a server node and server test node and such, I noticed that I don't have here all the temperatures in there, and this LM sensors stuff gives us here some temperatures also for that we are currently not getting because we have only the CPU cores here. I think, by the way, I also need to sort them better. I need to change the sorting. Until those Ryzen, I usually didn't have so many CPU cores, so this is alphabetically sorted. Of course, not the most amazing sorting here with 16 cores. Actually, these cores are, yeah. Anyway, so this is because this is CPU 1, 0, 1, 10, 11 to 15, and then 3 and such. Obviously not the most amazing sorting, all the small UI inconsistency glitches that you want to take care of eventually. And also we have here this AMD GPU fans, because again today we are running here, we are rocking this AMD Ryzen build with AMD Polaris RX 560 card, and just for testing and fun and such. And I wanted to make sure to also have here this sensors in there, and so we want to take a look where we even get the sensors from. This must be somewhere in this, and there you also see if you don't have consistent naming and stuff, then tools like this may not pick up all the sensors. So I actually wonder if we have class, is it because there are so many different classes. I already implemented the different, also for battery I have the ACPI and other, because even the Surface and MacBook have different exports there in SysFS for this values for the different smart batteries there, ACPI, old-fashioned and new style smart battery and whatnot. And I wonder a little bit, so we have here, we have here thermal, you see we have here some cooling devices, but apparently this might only be cooling devices until 15, so these are apparently the CPU ones, because we already iterate here. You see if here are some helper functions named after POSIX and whatnot, POSIX stat, POSIX deiteration. You see, and in my opinion this is super readable. This is why I'm completely tempted. Actually, one of my other side projects, maybe I rewrite also all the core utils like move, copy and stuff in Lua for embedded use and our own operating system, because in my opinion this is so much less error prone. You don't really need the performance of C for move and copy, and this is so much nicer to work with the strings here in Lua than in C and C++, obviously, in my opinion anyway. But leave in the comments below what you like and dislike and what you think about this. But in my opinion, of course, stuff should be secure and bug-free, and obviously it's much more easy to write bug-free and secure code here without buffer over underruns and such, and string matching here without the possibility of crashing your C libraries every other line, obviously. And of course I'm very fluid in C and C++, and yet I still prefer this Lua string handling for all the problem-free auto magic of this. So where are our C frequency scaling stuff we have there? So is this actually power? Let's see. So okay, power supply, we don't have anything. Where is then our, because this sensors picks this up. We could, by the way, to see where this is coming from, and this even works in user space. We could, for example, even make here a power graph, because for laptops I even have here example code to have here a battery widget that you might have seen on my Surface videos with battery drainage and estimated time remaining. And we could even use strace with open to trace here the opens. So this is okay, this is using HWMon for temperature stuff here. And do we even know? We don't really get temperature stuff here as far as I've seen. So then we need to check. The problem is also, my grief also a little bit with the Linux kernel stuff is that I have here already workarounds, because the Apple not coded by Apple, but just for Apple machines, that of course, which is this not, but we have. They use in the Linux kernel driver different naming. So you see we have here already HWMon sensors. So POSIX stat. If this exists, by the way, I really wonder, maybe I could get around this. I wonder if this would already return a nil iterator, because this POSIX dir stuff is returning a directory iterator. Actually, I wonder if I even need this line at all. Maybe this would naturally work without this, I guess. The stuff you wonder about your own demonstration code when you YouTube live stream. And so here's actually I2C stuff, and then yeah, so this is all temperatures and fan actually. So I wonder a little bit, why does this not pick up? And you see we have here already some magic that I did another night a month ago, and maybe in the future I might live stream all of this kind of tinkering that is open source or kind of open source or just programming related, because this I coded also recently a month ago. So when I realized that the Apple ones are special in, and again, this is not Apple's fault, but the open source developers compatibility stuff, because they are in a subdirectory. So I iterate here already HWMon, hardware-mon stuff, just that the Apple ones are in a subdirectory and the others not. And yeah, and again, this, in my opinion, this is so much nicer in Lua than doing this all open-coded in open-coded in C and C++. So questions from the audience, of course. First of all, welcome of all everyone. I started already, obviously, because people watching this on demand would be a little bit bored waiting here 10 minutes without something happening. So welcome everyone, Devin, Danny, Sakard, and Mikhail. Is it possible to isolate graphic card with FPGA? Yes, it's possible. There were already open source projects. They just didn't get that far. Maybe there are even new projects. I did not recently research this, but of course you can implement a VGA card in an FPGA if your FPGA has enough gates or LUTs or lookup table things and such. So you can implement a CPU like Pico RISC-V or graphic cards, whatever you imagine there. There is even commercial, huge, maybe even, I think there are even Intel CPUs with FPGA now, or at least add-ons in the system controller or CPU or wherever, some data center Xeons, and there are even, I think, 2 drivers in the Linux kernel with FPGA acceleration subsystem in the Linux kernel. And I think we all agree, I hope at least, and look how amazing this is. We can just do here some pattern matching on the file names. Imagine how error prone this would be, and poking with pointers in the C strings around there. You see just matching temp and fan, and you see some debug inputs. And by the way, test it works. This is, by the way, not a joke, because the Apple SMC, and you have seen in my previous videos, Apple machines have really many sensors, like 32 or some crazy number like this. And not all of them work on all machines, and the Linux driver is not making the best pre-preparations, checking which of those work. So the Linux driver, the Apple SMC Linux driver, is exporting usually many more sensors than work. And I did not want to have here 32 sensors where half of them are not working. This is why we do here a quick test. And usually in Lua, this stuff is read, write, seek, just like in C. This read simple is just a helper function of our own there, because I did not want it to open code there, open, read, write. So our read simple here, in general, by the way, programming tip, usually don't want to open code, openly code. Open code means open code, even in C, like int fd equals open some file whatsoever with some mode and such, and then read. And by the way, you need to check return code over here, then read a file descriptor into some buffer, and you get the idea however error prone this is here of all of this stuff. And then don't forget your close, because otherwise you also run out of file descriptors and stuff like this. And by the way, see how Lua doesn't use semicolons. I'm also totally in love. Even in Lua you can use semicolons, so you can put semicolons all over there, but you don't have to. And initially this was also alien to me, but in the meantime I'm so in love with this readability. All the semicolons saved in typing, and in my opinion. And also, in my opinion, we are in good company here. Huge open source, not open source, huge projects, products use Lua, World of Warcraft, many games, so probably every second game uses Lua for scripting the AI, the enemy movement and whatnot, and even Adobe's Lightroom, the raw photography editor suite and such, and of course our own cross-platform stuff here. And you see, in my opinion, at least I hope you agree, so you see if IO open the stuff here, read, if we don't get this, then return. You see how super simple this is. In my opinion, extremely easy to code here, and in my opinion this is also a really nice language to learn programming, start getting coded. Super simple, super easy, much readable, much more logical, much more simple than Perl, PHP, Ruby, and you name it, Python and stuff. And with Lua JIT also high performance. So what we want to do now is checking here what we get here and why we don't get our stuff. So here the iteration, this is some iteration functions. This is POSIX-dir returns some. This is, by the way, our own platform abstraction. Lua internally does not have directly this, only other functions. So not everything that you see in this video will work in pure Lua, but you get the idea. And for example, there are often modules. So for example, there is a Lua POSIX module, just that we do not have all the Lua POSIX module. We did not want to include the handful of all the variety of open source Lua modules in there. So this is why we have just included a handful of such ANSI and POSIX abstractions in our own UI runtime that we needed. It would be nice to, so comments from the audience, it would be nice to take low-grade graphics card and try to put the Linear low-grade graphic card in there, because it's not really cheap, but I do not know if there is enough connection points. So you probably cannot usually extend a ready-made graphic card with an FPGA. So because usually you don't have any bus connection, interconnect bus thing on a ready-made graphic card, so you probably would have to do all your graphic cards there, or you use a FPGA. If it's a fancy FPGA that has PCIe, you could plug in your FPGA in a PCIe slot and do some bus master transfer into the graphic card's frame buffer, but this is probably not ideal. But yeah, Danny writes, can you point me? I like to self-host everything in self-hosting DNS as well. I'm fine for now, but I'm open to learn something better. Any suggestions? What do you DNS with bind? I'm not hosting much DNS actually, but bind is huge, and I know there are alternatives, just that I'm not so much in this web hosting stuff personally. Yeah, so let's run this. So I commented out there, or commented in there, this prints, and let's run this here again. You see this starts in milliseconds, and let's see what kind of stuff we got there. This is all the printout. So we got here, somehow this looks really strange. What are we even opening there? This looks all kind of stuff, just not this class hmon. Is this really here? Because I really wonder, do we really have so many? This class, no, actually. So we have hmon0 and hmon1, which are probably so the problem is it's not the most readable, but maybe then one, I hope it's on screen though. Yeah, so here are the temperature things, and this is listing something. Does this have a, so this is K10 temp. By the way, do we not have this in here? No, we actually do not have this in there. Interesting. So this is, you see, this is how it works. And by the way, this is a little bit how my microkernel would work. I showed this in my microkernel sketching with all of those single things like in device nodes as device files to open, similar to Linux, just much more fine-grained and split in, and using this kind of device nodes for inter-process communication. And maybe this is a little bit like Plan 9 works, maybe from Bell Labs or so, this research system. And by the way, as far as I heard and read, that the Linux proc file system even came from Plan 9, because this AT&T or Bell Labs or something Plan 9 operating system is actually making heavy use of everything as a file, even maybe Windows, and you can even move Windows around on the command line or something crazy like this. And as far as I remember and heard, the Linux proc file system is actually inspired from Plan 9 proc file system or something. Okay, thank you for answering. So only option is to take an FPGA and install it to 8-bit chip and make it faster like Amiga Vampire is doing. Well, it depends where do you want a graphic card for a 65 something, or do you want a graphic card for a PC system? If you want a graphic card for a vintage system, then you can of course also interface it there and use this I/O rights on the system bus of the vintage systems to implement your own additional graphic stuff. You can of course also use an FPGA to implement this old-fashioned blitters graphic stuff in an FPGA. I think people have done this. There are people who even implemented an OPL3 FM synthesis in an FPGA, for example. I saw YouTube videos of this. So let's see, somehow this output here is strange. This is not what I expect to get here. And so this print function is a completely regular Linux Lua print function. So let's see, okay, this is not this print, so because this irritated me already, we have here, so HWMon0, okay, so this is where we get this from. This makes sense in a little bit, because we iterate in here, so you see this is how the code works, to teach you some programming if you're interested in this, if you are some coding, getting into coding session with René here. And because other famous super top models like this Clossy, also this coding with Clossy, so not web coding here, but I might not be as pretty as this, what is her name even? This Clossy coding with Clossy. Is her name Clossy? It doesn't matter. Anyway, might not be as pretty as her, but maybe more advanced coding here. So not web coding also, but some real men's, well, real men's not really see here, but anyway, more than web coding. Also, again, this is also a little bit like JavaScript, so if you learn something with this, you can also get in JavaScript. The reason I'm not a huge fan of JavaScript is that it's super huge. If you take the Google Chrome V8 engine, it's huge, and then it already includes all the special browser JavaScriptism. And Lua has the benefit of, if you just take Lua, you get the pure engine without any web nonsense in there. So this is why all the projects like World of Warcraft and Adobe Lightroom, again, nothing is a paid advertisement, just some example calling here, is using Lua for exactly this reason, just like us. So let's see, so this is indeed here this temperature stuff, and now I wonder what have we done here that, okay, so this is, maybe this is not working because this is a special Apple glue here. Maybe our special Apple glue is actually causing a bug or inefficiency here, that because we check here for the stupidity that the Apple SMC thing is there in some additional devicing, and we have here some devicing. So for this, this is probably not what we want. So we probably need to change our Apple workaround. Just comment this out here. If either, for example, commenting this out. So if this is devicing, then Apple shit, this doesn't fit here. So to disable this if false, then, so that this is never true, always false, and then always probably hopefully go here into this other, let's see what have we even done here, if is dear then, and for our cases actually, wait a second, then we can also, then we don't even need this. I thought this, my own indentation, so this is one line. Sometimes I do this, it might not be the very best style, this one-liner, but sometimes I like to do this even in C and C++ for quick changes, not to have here 3 lines for some is-dears and some other dears. So then this is why I overlooked this. Again, maybe not the best style because of this can irritate people, and maybe this one-liner already, where you look at this, our stupid Apple workaround for this stupid Apple SMC thing prevented our, you see, didn't one line commented out, and already all the temperatures come here, AMD, GPU, and here this are, let's see, this is AMD GPU, but even is this, probably I need to change the labels a little bit better here, that this is wattage or whatnot, that you, or have here some hovering mouse tips. So this is AMD CPU, so one made, so this is probably the, wait a second, completely don't realize it right now. So we have an, so this is temperature, okay, so we need here actually some temperature graphs that we better see here what this is. So probably some degree centigrade we want to add. And what is here, so this might be, so this is a rotation. So I probably need to add here some labels like rotation and stuff to better see on the first glance what is this. And these are the temperatures here from the K10 temp, I guess. So yeah, probably we need here some hovering tooltips and whatnot. So I hope this is of course not the real solution. I need to better detect here if this is Apple stuff. Maybe even we just reverse this to check if we find Linux proc exported temp and label stuff here, temp, fen, label, input stuff, then use this, so reverse this logic. But for now we know this, just this one line. I did not expect this, I did not, as I said, it's probably nicer to discover this together really live with you. I did not expect that this just this one Apple line of workarounds that prevents us from actually function and picking up the stuff that would otherwise already work here. And I hope you liked this initial look here to this UI stuff and some initial learning and otherwise programming. So how programming, if you're completely not in programming, but I guess most of my audience is, and maybe we do more advanced stuff. So the usual stuff in programming, some conditionals, if something is true or false, or checking some number, if some number compares to something else, and loops like for numbers in a loop for one until 10 or something. And yeah, if this is the first time you see program code, this is how it looks, and doesn't really matter if it's Lua or C, the stuff looks, in my opinion, mostly the same. And this is also why I like Lua, for looking quite similar to other languages and yet being so super simple. And yeah, strings like groups of text characters in names and stuff, usually in quotes like this in most programming languages. And yeah, super simple. If you're interested in this, then probably something. No, this metering, this kind of metering is currently private to me, to my example code base here of our proprietary UI system. I just wanted to show you some Lua and how this looks, and in my opinion this is super amazing. You see 1000 lines of code, probably the most distilled UI system that you can find, and this is probably, I was thinking already for a year or two to maybe commercialize this, because as you have seen, if I give it away as open source I earn nothing. And here are 5 years of, I think this is probably more than 5 years of mostly 20% project of mine. 20% project is my running gag of Google 20% projects. Of course at Extra Code we also have our 20% projects. So over the course of 5 years or so, as 20% project or more, we have here our own UI system. And as you have seen in yesterday's video, if I just open source this, I will never see many of a single cent of this. And in my opinion, this is so amazing and even better than Apple's stuff, because Apple's stuff is precompiled in previously Objective-C and no Swift. And what I really like from our own stuff here is it is similar to Apple stuff, yet dynamically typed. And this is so much more amazing than Objective-C and Swift. So it takes the good concepts of other commercial, like Apple, but not like we copied Apple. Of course we didn't copy Apple stuff because it's Objective-C and Swift and macOS. We just read good books and compiled and distilled the best ideas of all the UI systems. And what is also really nice, what I cannot show in this demo, but what is super nice in our stuff is that you can really nicely connect button signals. So if you have a button and other stuff in our stuff, because in C and C++ you always quite statically type, connect these button signals, and this is really a pain. And I know what I talk about because we have done this 20 years ago in our GSMP, which I could also show you another day. And the reason is that the reason I come back to this project is, of course, these are, you see this was on our private server here. You saw briefly this DROC Linux Stindinas, it's some super old, from 15 years ago. And the reason I come back to this is because this is some examples, some real world examples I can talk about, and actually I wanted more screenshot, but whatever. So this is written in C++, our GSMP code base, and I probably make another dedicated video because otherwise they become too long. So I will probably keep this live streams below or around 1 hour. Otherwise I have the feeling people are not really watching this and interested, because I hope people also watch it archived. So GSMP screenshot from yesterday. Let's see what we find here. Yesterday we already had screenshot, and I have this running here theoretically, just that now we only find the sound manipulation program. So because a decade or two ago we were in love with C++ and everything statically typed, and I know what a pain this was to program all this in statically typing. Then you need to define a lot of classes and structures and stuff, and this, and probably, by the way, I will but okay, maybe not to mix all the live streams. Anyway, so I have quite some experience also from our old-fashioned commercial software, ExactScan and OCRCAD, our classic line, statically typed in Objective-C on macOS. And from this, in my opinion, of course, this Objective-C stuff is not the worst, but it's also not the most amazing. Maybe better than Qt, and probably better than, because, so this is in GTK Plus, so I have GTK Plus experience from 2 decades ago. So our GSMP is GTK Plus, so the old like GNOME 1 from 20 years ago. But with C++ wrapper there is a GTK MM, GTK-, which is the C++ wrapper, because obviously 20 years ago we already preferred the more feature-rich and stuff, generically template typing stuff and advanced features of C++. So this is using GTK Plus with a GTK-, wrapper for C++. And for that we were, maybe when we wrote this, maybe I wasn't even a student. So we wrote this somewhere like 1998-ish. Probably need to check this up. So probably this is even before I was at university. So I entered university already being able to maintain a Linux distribution, hack on drivers, Linux kernel and whatnot, and have written a full multi-tracker, so that this is only showing 2 tracks, but maybe another video, maybe I make a video about this GSMP, this old project stuff, and show you that this is multi-track capable. We were recording already in 1998 with a 8-channel card. Even I have it, even, do I take it out? Maybe not. Have it still. I have a 20-year-old multi-track card here, 24-bit 96 kilohertz capable. We used this on and this was running 8 tracks on Rock Linux, obviously back in the day, on the 600 megahertz AMD Athlon, I think, and running amazingly. Not even SMP, only 1 CPU, the usual desktop consumer grade stuff you had there, and 600 megahertz running amazingly, 8 track. I think the tracks were even unlimited. I probably could click there as many tracks as you wanted, I guess. And yeah, not bad for before university and such. Just yeah. And so quite some typically typing experience with all this stuff, and at least I personally, I really like this Lua stuff here. This is really amazing. And also this declarative, here you see a new view, here a new window, and the reason what I said earlier, this is T window because temporary window. Normally you would have window equals window, because I make here a normal view. The difference, because initially I did not have this. Initially this was using native decoration, and then later I changed this to use non-native shadow for the coolness of it and testing of it. This is why I just added here temporary window and stick the normal window, window view, a normal view in there. So this is the 8 pixel larger or 16 pixel radius larger is the window, and then inside there is a normal view, which is not a window, a normal view thing of UI element thing, and in there are then stacked all the, so really object oriented programming in Lua with this tables. Everything in tables is amazing in my opinion. It's so simple. It's really nice. Yeah, and this is, by the way, this is just a test, you know, this is just some, let's hack some graphic stuff in 60 minutes or so. It's not like you develop this a week. This is just, you do this for 60 minutes, and then you have this graphing stuff here. Actually, okay, maybe it took 2 hours and not 1 hour, but anyway. And yeah, so this is vector drawing. So this is anti-alias vector drawing here with ARC. So this is our wrapping to ARC anti-grain geometry. So you see here setting some colors and drawing some graph here. This is fully anti-aliased and pot and duffer, or what it was. Graphic stacking, like PDF kind of graphic, like Apple is advertising PDF kind of graphic or so on macOS. Same thing here. With transparency and whatnot, and yeah, and yeah, 1000 lines of code mostly here you see, but 1000 lines of code mostly strings, like matching stuff from Linux proc files. Here this is the memory graph, so we open here proc mem info and passes here for lines, and you see how much more amazing Lua, and this is by the way standard Lua, not our invention. This is just 4 line in F for those open files. It's standard Lua IO open. And then just for all the lines in there, and look how much more amazing this is than C and C++, where each of your string functions can easily crash if you don't count all your bytes correctly. And is it possible, so question, is it possible to make clock isolated and in 60 FPS? What exactly do you mean with clock isolated? With it, you need to explain. But I have a couple of more demos, not really sure, because even we sometimes break stuff, because this was a 20% project of mine over 5+ years. So some of the stuff, but I'm amazed that usually we don't break so much. So here's just, this is just, by the way, some CD cover I had laying around from scanning it from some CD here. And so this is some animation demo. So this, we have even window animation, and by the way, this is this because we, in all this fancy UI stuff, you usually have animated stuff nowadays. And of course, we also, in our 10,000 lines of UI amaziness with Lua binding, we have of course some animations. So this is just some testing stuff here, animating the window, animating here this view. So these views are animated with different interpolation movement things, and then the animating the transparency. So you click here this button and you click here through the animation steps of the scene, and just with some different interpolation stuff like linear and logarithmic and stuff like this. And yeah, just some demos. And we also have a second, so just a couple of demos to demonstrate to, you know, it's always, we usually prefer to have some well-defined demos to, and by the way, this demo here, this is the Lua garbage collect, because Lua is garbage collected. Usually I'm not a great fan of garbage collecting, but whatever. In the rest, in the context of Lua, it is amazing. And so this example here is using 334K of memory. So this would probably theoretically run on a 386, and maybe another day, challenge accepted, maybe let this run on a 386 just for the fun of it. But there you see how much memory this needs, and I hope this is still working. So this is another animation example, and another day we need to GPU accelerate this even more. So this is just some dynamically object movement addition stuff, you know, just some fun demo that you come up as as regular computer science person of needing some demo. By the way, this demo you can also move this stuff around, because why not? And yeah, I guess you get the idea. In my opinion, this is completely amazing. I can even show you the source code for, at least does this window not honor should close, but doesn't matter, just a demo. I can show you the source code of this demo. So this animation demo of these rectangles is a whopping lines of 191 lines of code. And who is Trevor? Probably I need to watch this, watch the comments. So 191 lines of code, and the only reason I show this code is because these demonstrations do not include all our secret amazing source that we have developed and invented over 5 years of 20% project. And if anyone in the audience needs an amazing UI system, you can contact us for licensing deals. Let's see, how would you commercialize it and find customers? Necessary connection, maybe you already have the... Well, for a start, we could on our website put there, of course, in our technology section, some... We have amazing UI technology. Here are some screenshots and examples, and here's a YouTube video, and you can license it. And I was also thinking, you know, even navigation systems in cars and signage systems, and you can use it for everything, right? You don't need to develop this kind of applications, normal UI, rich, classic PC applications, but also embedded stuff like digital signage. Even, by the way, maybe because I need some animations, you have seen probably my YouTube videos do not have yet the most fancy animations, and because I have here already animation code, obviously, as you have seen, and I wonder, by the way, I even programmed here the PSP. Let me, what was the name of this PlayStation? No, I'm exposing here some names of our demos. Who is FriendOS? Who is Trevor? By the way, Danny, you need to explain your 60 FPS. I did not understand yet. What was the name? This was XP something. Here, this was the menu system. Not sure. Yeah, it works a little bit. So this, I just not sure. Does this work here right now, or maybe not? But you see some. I started here also some fun demos like TV navigation systems. Maybe this at one point worked a little bit more. Not sure. But here's some glowing text to check here some PS3 kind of menu thing, just for the trial of it. What we can animate and what to test some random stuff, because we have different animation stuff, object animation things. And here, by the way, you see a little bit how dynamically you can use. This is how you would normally do this, not with this crazy shadow stacking, but just a local window. Local is in Lua is a local variable that doesn't have global scope. To have it not like globally scoped, like static globally for all of your program, but just your local closure. And then local window with frame size 512, not really much anything here. Window init, because init is object. This is initializing the Windows 32 or X11 or UIKit or AppKit from Apple and stuff. Then some document, some regular view. View is any view object in the UI system. You see as huge as a document, and okay, we need this document to throw other views into it. And then we have here some layout function that is layouting all the objects. So for all the iterate here for all the subviews, in my opinion, super readable. And by the way, this underscore comes from Lua. This is just a regular variable name, and I saw this in one Lua example, and initially I found it crazy, but in the meantime I like this underscore for temporary loop variables. So for underscore and v is a view name, could also name this view, but whatever, in pairs of this document subviews. And then unless you supply some except view, if leave out the currently dragged position. So if it's not the excluded view thing, then calculate here the position of this rectangular grid and animate. So this is some local animation, some frame animation. You see super easy here. Create a locally scoped animation object variable thing, frame animation, new animation, animate this view v, target the target coordinates of this stuff, and this is so the target of the animation values, duration, how long you want to animate this in seconds. Of course, we don't use imperial units, so not some clusterfuck of how long the apple fell from some tree of some kingdom garden stuff. So amazing units here. Metric units are what we are into here, so duration in seconds. Interpolator, you can specify different interpolation functions like inverse, quadratic, or linear, or whatever, and then run the animation. And what this you don't need this first, you need this first only. The first is only keeping this animations in sync. So this first you don't even need. This first is only, you see this is a local variable that is empty, so this is nil. As again, Lua doesn't have anything else than everything is either nil or a boolean or a number or a table or a string, and or other stuff like a thread, like a coroutine or something. And so this first thing I only do here to keep these animations in sync. If you do not do this, all the animations run at relative to their creation time, and if you want to keep them in sync, I later, so of course initially I didn't do this, only later I wanted to synchronize animations, And this is why this animation is no except some other animation to synchronize on. So all these animations run synchronized because we are here for perfection and keep it stupid simple. And here are some functions, your local function, just some duck typing functions, add and remove. This add function adds a box. This box is some example view class. You see a frame and color, just some random color, or even math random because why not? And then we just add this document at subview. Probably all of you agree, experts or not, that this is super readable, at least in my opinion. If you don't agree with me, then leave it in the comments below. And then call the layout function because this layouts this, because we need to lay out all, because adding a box might, oh, this was the wrong demo, adding a box might, because we want to have this layouted in a square fashion. And this is why adding a box might relay out all of them if we overflow our current size of square dimension, and then all of them are animated. This is why we do not only lay out the one, but we potentially lay out all of them. And of course, because we lay out them animated, because why not? And again, this first thing keeps them here synchronized on the same the animation is not running in Stone Age timestamps or pyramid sizes or the lifespan of pharaohs, like animate this of 0.05 pharaohs of Egypt whatsoever. Anyway, you get the idea. And here's by the way buttons, so of course we have buttons because obviously we need buttons in ExactScan and such, so these are amazing buttons. And by the way, all of this is not C++, so all the buttons and stuff are in native Lua, in all our native UI system, and in my opinion it's amazing. And probably the longer I talk about this now, the more I need to sell it, because amazing. And yeah, so here's a button, and in the meantime we have even more amazing stuff, because this button is using the old-fashioned stuff of an action. And the action, so you see, you create a button in, well, depending on how you want to count it, you can even cheat and say this are 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of Lua, but if you make this a new line, then it is 5 lines of Lua, and you have your button, and plus the 4 lines of, or 4 or 5 lines of defining your remove or add function. Of course, everything dynamically, and you can even at runtime load the stuff, and with Lua JIT, just-in-time compiler, everything is even just-in-time compiled, even if you later load the stuff if you wanted to. And so this is the old school stuff in our new UI system. So old school is action equals here some function, and then if you press this button, this function is called, and as you see, dynamically typed, dynamically binded, and completely amazing. And the new style stuff because in ExactScan we had too many buttons obviously, and then we wanted to make this cooler, like in like other commercial companies might want to do this. And for this we have no properties, and the properties work a little bit similar to what you might find in other potential huge UI systems. So here of course we have quite some, and by the way, yes, I know that is not looking perfect because we just don't have more time. We are currently more motivated to make amazing YouTube videos and polishing our UI system. So all of this stuff is drawn in Lua with all our amazing UI glue. And you see here even text editing and whatnot. And just I next need to code that you can move these bubbles around, because in our Mac version with native Mac OS stuff, you can move these tokens around. Need to program this another day. And here pop-up menus and all the goodness. And of course, for all of this stuff, for example, we have here the sizes. For example, here's the sizes. Also sell your printer driver codec also to Trevor. Contact him. Really cool man. I do not know how Trevor is. So for example, here you see, by the way, this is as amazing and maybe even more amazing than our classic Mac software, which has, because even our Mac software as a small company a decade ago, we already programmed it more amazing than Windows software, because as you see in our Mac software, all of the stuff is updating here. And of course, when we program this all over again, in our new portable UI system stuff, we wanted something similar, that all of this stuff here is updating. You see this is the scan area. Here's some digital imprinter that you can even zoom into there. And again, this is all our UI system in Lua, and it's amazing. And you see, except some small bugs that we might need to, because this auto-scrolling is a little bit, need to hunt some auto-scrolling bugs, but This is not a bug in the generic UI system. This is just some limitations of this local auto-scrolling stuff programmed here in the exact scan selection. I think I hunted this already another day, need another hour or so. But anyway, this is already amazing. As you can see, you can drag here all this stuff. It works as amazing as in our, it works as amazing or maybe even better than in our classic Mac software, and all this stuff is updating here in real time. As you see, just deleted here something, by the way. This is a camper, anyway. You see this text changed here. This is what also our Mac version is doing. So if you change your color, by the way, we even have a color picker. Our color picker is a little bit minimal, but you see all the stuff is updating in real time thanks to this dynamically binding of Lua stuff. And you see, by the way, it is completely amazingly fast. Even native Windows software is sometimes slower than our dynamically typed and not yet just in-time compiled Lua stuff, because people just cannot program amazingly. And this is why we have here educational content. And the way this works, I can disclose already, is because if you would open code this, like open code meaning you code all of this, like this action, for example, because this has an action here, because you can edit the text here, right? So the X coordinate, if you change this here, this updates, because this is also the size here in, okay, this just this stupid black box, this is a black box bug, because this also changed. So if you change here this width, you need to keep in mind that a lot of stuff happens here. If you change this to 18 centimeters, or in imperial foods, these are like 7 fingers of some king of ancient times of something in inch. And you saw that also this media size here changed from A4 to custom, because amazing software. And for this, you do not want to open code all of this. If you open code this like this action to this action to this function, then you have inconsistency bugs, and this will for sure not work amazingly. And if you want this to work amazingly without open coding this, you want some nice helper functions and helper classes, and for this we have properties, which I will not show you today. But to explain you the concept is that we have a property for X and Y and width and height, and we bind all the UI elements on there. Other UI systems also have similar concepts, like macOS Cocoa there on macOS since next step times. And then all this text field is not bind to an action or some text value, but they bind to this property. So this X value is using the same property as is using the media size here for the pop-up, as is using this selection view, that when you drag here around on this selection view, you actually modify the same property, and it's automatically updating all these other UI elements that connect to the same property, instead of manually connecting all this stuff all over again. And here, zoom here and stuff, and all the scrollers, obviously all of this stuff. It might not yet look the most amazing, because our time is limited, and our customers usually do not complain that this does not look yet as amazing as it could look like, but maybe soon we need to hire a graphic designer and makes it even more amazing. And yeah, stuff like tab works, and here's some first responders chain, and here's some tables. This is a real table view, and you get the idea probably. And this is some real tab view, because tab views, and this is a real ruler view, because obviously amazing UI system needs rulers. And so much to the basic overview of our shameless self-promotion of our UI subsystem. This is just some Unicode graphs. Apparently we are using there some Unicode points that are not in the font that is installed here. We are using the system font here, so some fonts. So these warnings here are just some fonts, not here. Probably I guess maybe. Actually, right. We have here some plus arrows here. Like, yeah, here are arrows. So these angled arrows are just not in the font. So much to that. Just some warnings. You can find him on YouTube. Can look him up. So I hope you enjoyed this quick guide to amazing dynamically typed script languages that are amazing for integrated application scripting and stuff like this. And as you can see, This stuff does not need to be slow. Of course, this right now is an amazing Ryzen, but this works similar, snappy on not as powerful machines as this one. And we have quickly established here this missing graph pieces. And next we probably want to, so we have probably many things. So we could next also code here some wattage thing for this power if we wanted to. And we also probably want to change this code then another day, maybe another video, because we want to keep them in the 1 hour range. We still need to think how exactly we want to change this for this Apple SMC stuff. Come on. Because I only commented this out, this Apple conditional here, and we need to check better what the Linux kernel driver is exporting exactly. Probably changing this to checking if we have some label there directly, and if not, then diving into iterating into this device node there. Also a little bit stupid that these Linux drivers have all this different, exposing their different directory structures. They're a little painful that each and other driver is doing their own thing. So what else did we find? So it's probably time to end this live stream, keeping them in manageable lengths here. We probably will tonight do our each week's IT Bit News live show. So if you are into IT news, you probably want to share, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned for probably tonight, I guess, maybe 8 o'clock or something, European Central European winter time, plus minus your local time zone and stupid daylight saving that your time zone might already use or not. I hope you learned this and this inspires you to write amazing software and keep it stupid simple, and inspire you to learn languages that might be more useful than PHP. At least in my opinion, PHP is not the most amazing piece of invention, and Lua, in my opinion, is much more amazing in this regards in so many ways. Also keep it stupid simple and stuff, and error free and bug free and fast and all of this. And unless you have a pressing question in the audience, it is probably time to end this live stream for today. So here's Alice's laptop where you can run like 3 different OS, Linux, Amigos, and okay, interesting. Good to hear. Interesting stuff. Always love to read all the comments and chat with you guys. And as we do not have so many open questions right now, I guess I press on the end stream button now, and hope to see you soon for the next videos and streams to come.